Okay. Is it working? Okay, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're about to begin. Just give me a moment. Here we are. Okay, so we're holding in Dvar Malchus in Perek Dalet, Parshas Vayeishev, Sif Dalet. Okay. So last week we spoke about the dialogue that the Medrash says that Mashiach Tzidkenu has with the Jewish people. When he says that the Geula is about to come, the Yidden argue, aren't we supposed to be subjugated to 70 nations? So you see already in the Medrash that Yidden don't want to are not ready to accept Besudas HaGeula. And Mashiach gives them two answers, the Medrash says. One answer is that if you don't need all the Jewish people to be everywhere, but if Yidden are across the world in different places, so that itself is already considered as if they've been around all over the world. Second answer, that there's one country that country receives tax from everyone else, and as a result of that, it's considered as if they've been enslaved to all the countries. So as I mentioned last week, you see that this conversation taking place in this amazing Parshas Vayeishev Sichav Tafshin Nun Beis 5751. Still 5751. Yeah, it's 5752. In this talk, it's in 1991. The Rebbe began by saying that people are asking, where do you see that the world is ready for Mashiach? When Mashiach comes, it's a thing that has to be universal. It has to be for the whole world. Where do you see that the world is ready for Mashiach? So he went on to explain, as the part we learned last week, that since during the exile, Yidden do learn Torah and mitzvahs across the world. But not only do we learn Torah and do mitzvahs across the world, but in every place when we come to that country, we don't just pass by, but we settle in every country. And the settling into every country, and what happens is when we settle in a country, we take on some of the flavor of that particular country, in as much as is halachically permitted, and then we observe our observances with the character and the nature and the flavor of that country. And by doing that, we integrate that whatever character of every country into our Jewish experience, and as a result of that, we elevate that country into holiness, and we bring Kedusha to register and to become fully integrated into that country, preparing that country for Mashiach. So the Rebbe concludes and said what we learned last week is that here you see a davar pella, that throughout history the Jewish people were primarily living and being just 1 second here. Yidden are sorry. Yidden we're up till now, we're really staying in one place, close to Eretz Yisroel, and only in the latter few years do we find that the Jewish people were spread out across the entire world. And Yidden have reached everywhere. Chatzi Kadar Atachten, this lower half of the globe, and so on and so forth. So that's what you see, something that has never been in history. We were always kind of concentrated next to Eretz Yisrael. But this is a sign, the last words, Kishem Izbanin and Bezais. Let me read the last words we learned last week. Even if we just think about it just for a short little while, we see the benefit of our generation. Compared to the previous generations. This enables us to purify every country in the world. Based on what we spoke earlier, that according to all signs, we finished already all the birurim, all the purifications and all the rectifications. And then move in, it's understood why we're already standing at the final stage of the redemption. Okay. So we learn Perek Dalet. Everything is built on a manner of general and specific. This idea that we spoke earlier, which was the general theme, which is talking about the completion of the purification of the world, expresses itself in a very specific way in the purification and rectification of France. By first making an introduction. In one of the promises of the redemption, which is in the Haftorah of the previous Shabbos, again, that week the Rebbe said this was Parshas Vayeishev, so the previous Shabbos was Vayishlach. So in the Haftorah of Parshas Vayishlach, Ne'emra b'mefurish Medinas Sarfas. It mentions France specifically. It's a pasuk in Avadia. It says V'golus heichal hazeh, and this golus that began the Bnei Yisroel at Sarfas, which began with the Jewish people going to France, and as the Radak says that at the beginning of the exile, I think at the time of the first Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, there were Jewish people that arrived already in France. Yirshu, so it says Yirshu es Orei HaNegev, they're going to inherit. So all these people are going to come back in the end, and they're going to inherit the lands of the south. V'olu Moshiach Bahar Tzion, and those that were saved will go up on the mountain of Tzion, Lishpoit es Haresav, to judge the mountain of Hesav, V'hoisel Hashem Amlucha, and the kingdom will be to the Eibishter. Tzarech love, we need to understand. From this, that the Navi specifies both the exile and the redemption of France moving. It's understood. That there is a special shaychus regarding France. Because even if, wants to say the Jews that are going to come back from everywhere. So, but why does it have to speak about the end of days when Jews are going to come up from France? L'chora, even if at the beginning of the Galus Yidden went to France, why is it important to state that in the pasuk? Especially when we're dealing with a Navi and promises and prophecies that are dealing with the end of days, not at the beginning of time. So what nafkamina does it make that there are Jews who went to France way back then? We're talking about the redemption. So we have to say that there is something powerful and regarding the redemption, something specific related to France. And moving from misunderstood, that the Geula, it is important that it is connected to France. Which the beginning of the Galus Hoya B'Tzarfas. And also that the beginning of the exile wasn't France. What is the reason for this? Because the shleimus, the completion of the rectification of the world, which is the theme of the last words of the Haftarah, which is Vayeishev Hashem Amlucha, that Hashem will be king, Hashem will be the kingship of the entire world, which involves the purification of every country. Comes about through the purification and the elevation that the Jewish people accomplish in France. So that's why l'chura it had to be at the beginning as well, based on the idea of not tchilasam. This is my own thought over here. The Rebbe doesn't explain in the talk why it's negaya. The beginning was in France, but it's possible that since the ultimate final preparation for Mashiach happens in France, the Eibishter brought about that already from the moment the exile began, the Jewish people were already directed towards France, because it's very negaya that's crucial for the purpose of the Golus. So what's the idea? So Perek V'Yuven Zeh will understand this. Al pi hashinui v'achidush b'yachas shel Yisroel b'dereinu zeh l'medina Sarfas l'gaba yachas ohi b'derei shel Admar HaZaken. We will appreciate this by appreciating the tremendous change and the novelty of the relationship of the Yidden to France compared to the time of the Alter Rebbe, 7 generations ago. So about 200 and so years ago, we see how Yidden related to the French, and we see how we relate to France now. We can appreciate this idea of the miracle and the idea of the grand finale of the purification of the world. Yedua is known that in the days of the Alter Rebbe, when when it broke out the war between Napoleon the Frenchman, Tsar Alexander, and the Tsar Alexander Harusi from Russia. Savar Admin Azakin. So the Alter Rebbe was of the opinion, Loikamai Gadol Achar Yisrael, not like other Gedolim amongst the Jewish people. Here's where, by the way, people make mistakes. A lot of people relate the story of the Alter Rebbe's conflict with another of the Chassidic tzaddikim, and they pinpointed on Reb Shlomo Karliner. Shlomo Karliner passed away many years before that, so it wasn't Reb Shlomo of Karlin. It was actually the main one who stood against the Alter Rebbe in his fight and believed that Napoleon should win was Ramendele of Rimanov, one of the great Chassidic Rabbeim in Poland. He was a student of Rabbi Melech of Lezensk. The Koznitzer Maggid actually was also of the opinion that Napoleon should win, but then he went over onto the Alter Rebbe's side to fight for the victory of the Tsar. But anyways, what was the Alter Rebbe's opinion? The Alter Rebbe believed for the sake of the spiritual well-being of the Jewish people in matters of Yerushalayim, in matters of fear of God, fear of heaven, it would be much better that Russia should win this war, and that France should have a loss, that the French should be defeated. The Alter Rebbe was very strongly of the opinion that if France is going to win, it's going to ruin the level of Yerushalayim, a fear of heaven amongst the Jewish people. In other words, Jewish observance is going to drop dramatically in Russia, and enlightenment is going to take effect, similar to what happened in Germany and so on and so forth, and it would be devastating to Russian Jewry. And therefore the Alter Rebbe believed very strongly that the Tsar has to win. And in the holy words of the Alter Rebbe, in a letter that the Alter Rebbe wrote to Moshe Meislish, as we know, Moshe Meislish was one of the Alter Rebbe's Chassidim that was fluent in French, and he was literally assisting in the war effort. He was actually spying in the highest military meetings of the French elite. He managed to get himself into their to gain their trust, and he was passing secrets to the Chassidim in Russia, who passed it on to the Tsar's army, and that was part of what helped in the defeat of Napoleon. Which, by the way, the Alter Rebbe and the Mittler Rebbe were given an official status of honorary citizens of Russia because of their tremendous assistance that they gave to the Russian military. This Moshe Meislish, the Alter Rebbe sent him a letter in explaining to him why he feels so strongly that Napoleon should lose and that the Tsar should win. If Bonaparte will win, Napoleon's name was Bonaparte, so physically, materially, the Jewish people will do well. The wealth of the Jewish people will increase. The Yudim Keren Yisroel and the honor of the Jewish people will be elevated. But they will be scattered and will be distant, the heart of the Jewish people from their Father in heaven. In other words, Russian Jewry was not ready yet to receive such freedom. These freedoms that Napoleon would bring would only cause them to become, God forbid, distant and removed and less observant and religious and removed from their observance. Alexander, and if Alexander is going to win, even though this is going to increase poverty, the Yushbal Karen Yisroel and the Jewish people will continue to be oppressed under the Tsar's rule, which we know after that many years of horrific oppression. But they will be attached, and they will bond, and will become attached, and I guess Yisaktu is even deeper connected the heart of the Jewish people to their Father in heaven. That was the words of the Alter Rebbe. So the Alter Rebbe said that even though materially we can benefit, but spiritually we will lose. And he felt that the spiritual well-being was more important than their physical situation. Hatam l'kachoya. What is the reason why? Why is Napoleon bringing to the Jewish people a decline in their observance? The reason is because Napoleon himself was a ruler that was a big atheist and believed completely in himself. And as a result of that, he represented a horrible darkness, a klipa, a very big concealment on God. And when he would take over, his klipa, his impurity, would impact actually the people, the Jewish people's hearts. And Napoleon, he says, Napoleon Beroshi. In general, France and Napoleon as its leader, Yitzka Oz then represented Tenua Shel Chayfesh, a movement of freedom, Rachmana litzlan, Mikol Inyonei Das, a freedom, may God protect us from all matters of religion, the emunah and faith, B'Kadosh Baruch Hu, in God. The klipazi, in other words, because Napoleon then at that time represented an overthrowing of the monarchy, of any kind of absolute power. But along with that overthrowing of that power also came the removal of the authority of God. It was to remove the authority of the church and so on and so forth, which means a higher power, a casting off the yoke, not only of human kings, but of the heavenly king as well, the heavenly kingdom as well. The klipa Zushal Malchus Tsarfas Napoleon, and this klipa of the French Empire, Shechivsa as Toikefa klipa vadina kasha. These are the words of the Mittler Rebbe. They represented the intense klipa and very, very harsh judgment, meaning to say judgment in the sense that it's very, very, very constricting on a sense of godliness and an awareness of Hashem in the world. Machmas, and the reason for that all was shegeyus v'hisnasos, because Napoleon was the ultimate arrogant person. Litlois v'lismech al koichai. He relied completely on his power, ugvarasi, on his strength. Loimar, he would say, koichi v'oitzem yadi, that it's all my power. He wouldn't pray to Hashem for success in his wars. And he's completely removing divine providence and faith, ubitachen b'Elokim, and trust in Hashem. Bedugmas klipa sancherev. The Mittler Rebbe writes that he's similar to the klipa of Sancherev, k'vishamavar admeram tzoi. So, this was a serious situation. He writes over there in the letter, the Mittler Rebbe, that Alexander is the opposite. Alexander is a believer, and he prays, and so on and so forth, and he knows that Hashem is the boss, and he's under God's thing, and he davens to Hashem for his support. And that has an impact on the country and on the people, and so on. And the Rebbe says even more, this is not just a klipa, a impurity that had a power just for that particular time. It had long-reaching effects for future times, and the generations to come. In other words, this klipa was something that spread out. It spread itself out on a far-reaching, or it's a web, far-reaching effect on the world at large. The Rebbe says over here that we know that the French Revolution was really the beginning of the entire modern world. The revolution, the French Revolution, which happened in the year Tafkuf Memtes in 1789. Napoleon, which as a result of this, Napoleon rose to power. Kavar Mispershanim, after some years passed, Lamanhiga Shal Tzarfas, to the leader of France. Ideologis. It wasn't just a revolt against a revolution in terms of the leadership of France, but it represented an ideology. And what was it? Its ideology. It's inyan klali, which was a very general thing. Shehevi imoy shinu ikri ba'odam kulai. It brought a tremendous change in the entire world. And this was one of the most important events, which upon this was laid the foundations, the conduct of the modern world, the hatarbus and the culture, until this day. It was the French Revolution which represented the enlightened world and the modern world. Until the revolution, the government of France and most countries was completely under the authority of a king and a queen. And they conducted the affairs in accordance to their liking. But the revolution is the revolution was based on the idea that people should be given the rights to conduct themselves the way they want and not have to submit to the power of the king. That's why they rejected the king and the queen in order to free the country from their dominion and from their authority. And that the conduct of the country should move over to the public. That which represent the whole idea of elections and freedom and all this came about as a result of that revolution. Now, even though the Rebbe says that's not a bad thing in and of itself, in America, the Rebbe doesn't see the revolution as something bad. When America freed itself from Britain and represented its own independence. And the difference is one thing. Even though this brings along a tremendous benefit, that there is freedom in the material, the physical aspects of people's lives. And as a result of that, there's less injustice being done. When kings and queens were in power, they did whatever they want, even though it was many times very unjust to their subjects, because they had absolute power. When you're giving it over to the people, so the people get to vote, so this increases justice in the world. And this would have brought freedom and wealth to the Jewish people. Since it was not based on a foundation of belief and trust in God. This brought with itself, Napoleon, and specifically through Napoleon, it brought about a tremendous spiritual form of freedom. One is being freed from matters of religion, and removing the yoke of heaven, the hifkedos, and as a result of that, a complete state of everybody does whatever they want. Which eventually caught up with many countries, which created the whole Western culture. And it was because of this that the Alter Rebbe had a tremendous opposition in all of his with his entire strength against the French. This spalal, and he davened, and he did all of implied all of his spiritual power, and even his physical aid, as we said earlier, through his chassidim, that they should be defeated in the war. It was to such a degree, the Alter Rebbe was so adamant not to be under the domain of Napoleon, under his rule over the French, under the French. Baruch Admin Hazaken im kol b'nei Beisai. The Alter Rebbe literally escaped. Im kol rechushay v'nechasa, took all of his possessions. Miliyadi, and he ran away from the Yadi. V'ad, and so important was it to the Alter Rebbe that because of this he actually jeopardized his physical well-being. And then to the point where naturally, as a result of his escape from Napoleon, the Alter Rebbe fell ill. The Alter Rebbe basically gave his life up for this. The Alter Rebbe passed away in the little village of Piana in Chav Dalatevis on his way, and it was a freezing winter as he was escaping from Napoleon. In other words, the Alter Rebbe did not want to be under the same roof with Napoleon, which under his power. And the Alter Rebbe promised the Mittler Rebbe, Ad Kedei Shavua. The Alter Rebbe made an oath to the Mittler Rebbe that Napoleon will lose and the Tsar will be victorious. That Russia will win this war. And so it was. It's a very an amazing story how the Mittler Rebbe is getting worried because Napoleon is already seeming to be laying siege all the way deep into Russia. I think in Petersburg or in Moscow, and over here there needed to be and then in the end, in the last minute, he was pushed back. And as a result of this defeat, the Jewish people were saved from this very dark klipa, from this very negative influence that would have happened if France would have at that time conquered Russia. And the Jewish people were able to continue after that their service in their heart coming close to Hashem. And specifically, what happened after this? You had the Mittler Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, and all the other Chassidic Rabbeim, and this brought tremendous increase of Jewish hearts coming closer and becoming even more attached to divine service, and so on and so forth. B'Medina, in that country, through the medium of our Rebbes, those who took the place of the Alter Rebbe. And with this to see Vav, with this to see the tremendous Chiddush. Oh, so by the way, first of all, this itself gives us an interesting thing. There's a lot of thought regarding the United States of America, regarding the leadership, the previous leadership, the current leadership. People were pointing out a lot that in the current leadership, it's giving rise to the anti-Semitism, to the right, to the extremists, and so on and so forth. Even if you're going to say that's true, you have to realize that the previous administration, the previous leadership, was very, 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 very much part of a global movement that is a complete atheistic movement, completely denies God, and as a result of that, anti-religious in all levels, and as a result of that, literally bringing about a breakdown of all basic morals of basic humanity regarding family life, regarding abortion, regarding so many different things, which even if one is going to argue and say that there might be some extremists on the right that are becoming emboldened, like we saw in Pittsburgh and so on and so forth, as a result of this, even if that would be true, if you take into consideration what the Rebbe is saying over here, how the Alter Rebbe stood for the religious Gentile, and it's known from the Baal Shem Tov, I think, that if you're traveling with a coachman and he doesn't cross himself when he passes a church, you should get off and not continue traveling with him because he's dangerous, because he's far more possible for him. Because someone who doesn't have fear of God. So you see that there has always been an appreciation that there should be for religious, even though we're talking about the Christian, not Jewish, but still, especially in America, where the Christian right is primarily not anti-Semitic. Primarily, I'm not saying all. Not anti-Semitic, quite on the contrary, the highest and biggest supporters of the Jewish people and of Israel. So that's just important to know. Now we continue inside. And with this, we see the tremendous chiddush and novelty that was added on in our generation. B'yachas klape Medina Sarfas, in our relationship when we relate to France. With the koyach, with the power, and with the shlichus of kvod kedushas of the previous Rebbe. We see tremendous transformation as a result of the previous Rebbe. What do we see? Not looking at the fact that country was in those days toikef haklipa. It was the most intense klipa possible. And it stood against conduct that was in a manner of God-fearing observance, and particularly it stands against serving the Eibishter in the unique way of Chassidus, which that was the reason why the Alter Rebbe was so opposed. He was so against its nitzachim, its victory. As we mentioned earlier in Sifei, and also in the generations after that. We saw literally. In other words, that France is a place that is not so fitting for fearing God, We see in later generations, Paris always represented the symbol of immodesty and all kind of other sinful behavior. And even by the Rabbeim, by the further Rabbeim, our teachers, those who sat on the place of the Alter Rebbe, meaning you didn't find by them a set state that they should be involved in spreading Chassidus, Torah Chassidus in France. But what happened? But now the Rebbe says the whole thing was completely transformed from one extreme to the other extreme. It's not only that we began infiltrating France and that holiness started arriving there from other places. That means that in France they're starting to receive influences, outside influence from Kedusha. But rather, it went so far that Jews who studied Torah and Jews that study Torah, both the revealed part of the Torah and the esoteric part of the Torah, and Jews who are fulfilling mitzvahs in a God-fearing way, have settled there for a period of time. Particularly emissaries of the previous Rebbe. And they conducted themselves, or they occupied themselves learning Torah and doing mitzvahs in the most most beautiful way possible. And writing Torah, actually innovating, writing Torah. That they wrote Svarim, they wrote books in which people in other places are able to learn of them. Because they printed them. And particularly the Rebbe says, when did the main effect on France happen? After the Second World War. By divine providence, it has arrived over there. Many people from many countries arrived in France. Until that country became a place and even a center of Torah and Judaism. Of spreading Torah, Vayahadus and Judaism. And it intensified tremendously the spreading of the wellsprings of Chassidus. And they've established over there many establishments of Torah and prayer. They set up Taim Chetimimim of Lubavitch, and also Achei Timimim and others and the like. With many branches. And in general, not only Chabad Yeshivos, but all kinds of other schools that were established over there. And the Rebbe is very strongly emphasizing this constantly, that they print books over there. The idea of printing books means that it not only is that there is Torah and Yiddish Kaidir that's taking root in France, but it's actually becoming a source where people can learn the books that are printed in France and other places, which means it becomes a source of holiness, not just a recipient of holiness, which is very important. In the revealed Torah and in the hidden Torah. And it's all in a manner that is constantly increasing. And the tremendous chiddush, the novelty is based on what we said earlier. Just like in regards to the general avodah of the world. As time passes from generation to generation, Jews arrive to new places, which are farther away from Eretz Yisrael. In order to effect over there the purification, to prepare that place for Mashiach, because the shleimus of a birur is not when we pass by, as we spoke last week and mentioned it this week. It's not when we pass by, as a visitor and do a mitzvah there. It's primarily when we settle in that place. Because only then is when the nature of the country starts becoming part of our nature. Starts becoming part of our nature. And we use them in hagim of the place in order to add an avodas Hashem k'niskali elsiv base, like we learned earlier. So just like it was in regards to the Jewish experience, the diaspora, the Jewish migration, that it starts here and eventually it continues everywhere. The same is in regards to the particular pre-Mashiach avoda, that is the avoda of the leaders of Chassidus, in spreading Torah and Yiddishkeit and Afatzas Hamayones, they follow the same path. As the time passes, Chabad Chassidus and the influence of Chabad increases across the whole world. And in our generation, it has also affected also the rectification of the land of France. Not looking at the fact that what? That this is considered a very low place. And the conduct of the place is in contradiction to matters of fear of heaven, which this was the reason why the Alter Rebbe was so against France. Notwithstanding that, Yidden settled in that country, in our generation, in the power of the leader of the generation. The power of the previous Rebbe, the Nasi of the generation. And they refined it and rectified it. On the contrary, they started using the menhagim of the place in order to add in spreading Torah, Vayeishev and Yiddishkeit, and the hafatza of and the spreading of the Torah of Chassidus. So that's a total transformation. It's an incredible novelty that a place that was so dark, where the Alter Rebbe ran away from, now we're able to conquer it and deal with it. V'yesh loymar, this is his amazing Perek Zayin, and we'll conclude with this. We'll continue next week. V'yesh loymar shakoyach lezeh, the koyach for this nevei amakach stems from this. Shezah hoya aseder eitzim l'siyah der atzmai. This is the power of the Friediger Rebbe himself. You see that in himself, that he himself made a journey. Unlike all the other Rabbeim that stayed in Russia, the Friediger Rebbe was the one who was on the move. The place, the settled place of our Rabbeim, told the previous Rebbe, was in Russia. And even when they left that country, the first two Rabbeim didn't even leave Russia. The Mittler Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, the Alter Rebbe. But the fourth Rebbe, the Rebbe Marash, even if they did leave, it was only temporarily, with the thought to return. That was the next two generations, the Rebbe Marash and the Rebbe Rashab. To our Nasi, the Nasi of our generation, it added a chidush compared to the Nasiim that were before him, the Rebbes before him. He uprooted himself from Russia. And he settled in different countries. And in general, there were three tkufas in the Friediger Rebbe's life. Each one was about a 10-year period. In his time of being Rebbe, the Friediger Rebbe was Rebbe for 30 years. So, in the first period of his life, Tafresh Pei to Tafresh Pei Ches, 1920 to 1928, Be'ikar Berussia was mainly in Russia. His second period, second phase of his leadership, Tafresh Pei Ches, 1928, Tafshin to 1940, but Poland was in Poland. Vatkifa Shlishis, in the third period, Tafshin, 1940, Tafshin Yud to 1950, Ba'atzis Abris was in America. Based on what we said earlier, and based on what we said earlier, that in each place there needs to be an enclosement. According, the Jewish people can't just come there, but they have to actually assimilate to a certain degree into the country. You saw differences in the conduct of the Friediger Rebbe, in the manner in which he spread Torah, Yiddishkeit, and spreading Chassidus outward, which all fit with the place where he settled. We can say, since by the Friediger Rebbe himself, there was different types of his slapshus, different types of enclothing, and different types of work. from Russia, the place where his fathers lived. Shaba avdu asavidasam kol abeseinu nesiyenu, and where all of our rebbes did their avodah. Adla artis abris until America. Chatzika, where he came, then he came to Poland, then he came to America. Chatzika, which America is a whole different beast. It's a whole different reality. Since there was, here's the thing, since the Friediger Rebbe himself went through, and he's the leader of the generations, went through a period constantly of adapting, so it empowered the Jewish people to adapt to new types of service. It empowered the generation to make these changes. Now, in different places, the Rebbe connects this to the Friediger Rebbe being the sixth, and the Friediger Rebbe being Yosef, because we find the same thing this week in the parsha, last week and this week with Yosef Hatzadik. That until Yosef, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they were all living in Eretz Yisrael, and Yosef is the one who takes the plunge and goes down to the lower half, so to speak, to Mitzrayim, and he brings the Jewish experience down to Mitzrayim. It's exactly similar to that, and spiritually, it's connected to the idea that that's the whole idea of Yisoid. Yisoid has to take the energies of Atzilus and bring it down into Bria, bring it down into a much lower, infinitely lower place. So the Friediger Rebbe as well makes that change. This empowered the ability to do the effect of the purification of all the places in the world, even in the lowest, to affect and to elevate even France. And this is the chiddush of this generation, compared to the Alter Rebbe's generation and all the previous generations. Like we see it in a revealed way in the yachas, in the how we relate to France. After the purification and the refinement that happened through the avodah of spreading Torah, Yiddishkeit, and specifically Chassidus, and spreading it outward, many generations from the Alter Rebbe, because the Alter Rebbe is the first generation, continuing in Afatzas Amayonas Chutz, Havoida, and Avoida Shapala, Bidur V'zichuch Kam B'chol Olam. Now the work of all those generations, the Mittler Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, and all the Chassidim and all that, had a very big effect on the whole world, not only on Russia, but in a manner of coming from above. By purifying the ear in Russia, it affected even places far away. So as a result of that, and even more, since in time we're coming closer to Mashiach, which at that time there's going to be the shleimus, the complete purification of the whole world. In this generation, we received a new power, an empowerment we never had before, and that is to elevate the lowest, not in a manner from shining light from above, but by elevating it from below. In other words, by going into its kishkis and elevating it. Now, the ability to elevate even France. And more in general. Really, the first one who started, now, even though it's the Friediger Rebbe who did it, the Rebbe says, but the Iker, in some sense, it started already with the Rebbe Marash. Ki Yadu, as it is known, Shenasa Kama Pa'amim L'Tzarfas. The Rebbe Marash traveled a few times to France, for also Sham Bali Tshuva, and he made Bali Tshuva over there. He brought Jews back to Yiddishkeit. The famous story of the Jew who was sitting in the casino, and the Rebbe Marash brought him back. In addition to this, that he thought and he affected things in the Torah of Chassidus. And then by the Rebbe, the Nishmas Ein, the Rebbe, the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Chabad Rebbe, Reb Shalom Ber, Shahayasham Pa'amim Rabbis, where the Rebbe was there many times. V'achasham b'Menton, there in a place called Menton. Famous mimer of the Rebbe Rashab, which is Tafresh Ayin Beis, like the classic of Chassidus, was the foundation of that was when the Rebbe was in Menton. He actually wrote part of the Chassidus in that place. The Iker v'shleimus abir, but the main shleimus of the bir, in a manner of settling down. See, that was just like infiltrating from the outside, but in a manner of settling down this yashvus, in an internalized way, in a manner that it's spreading everywhere. Nasa b'dereinu, that happened in our generation. through the previous Rebbe. In addition to this, that he himself was in France more than one time. And he said Chassidus, and he said Sichos there. Shalach l'sham shluchim ibnei Beisai. He sent shluchim of his own family. Ashachai Sham Kamashanim, and over here, of course, the Rebbe is referring to himself, where the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin lived over there for 8 years. Remember, the number 8 is a very important. Around 8 years. Yeah. And they did their avodah in learning Nigla the Torah and Pnimius HaTorah. He sent Chassidus there and letters. And over there they also prepared many things to be printed. And how important it is when things are printed, the Rebbe says. Think that it reaches much more people, which only written things are not so. That not everybody can read. In addition to so much other Torah that was written over there. And in general, the main thing is they did a bitter and a refinement in a manner of enclothing themselves by conducting themselves in the ways of that country. In a manner of tremendous Yerushalayim and Hider, and doing the mitzvahs in the highest way. And the Rebbe is testifying, speaking about himself and the Rebbe, and of course all the other tremendous, big, great Chassidim that were there. But they But the Rebbe Be'ikr says, the B'nai Beisai of the Friediger Rebbe, that they did the deep bitter internally in the Kishkis of France. They fixed it. Menei Ubei, from within it. Davar Asher Paratz Asaderech, that which gave the way, V'noisen Asakoyach, and gives the ability, Lishbar, to break, Ulahapech as Toikef HaKlipa, and to transform the most intense Klipa that there is. V'agilui B'zeh B'shleimus. And then it revealed it itself, or reveals itself. That was all internally. Where was it revealed? After the Friediger Rebbe arrived to America, to the lower half of the globe. And he appointed and he sat over there. He founded Toim Chetmimim and other institutions. And he appointed and he sent shluchim to go there and to settle over there and to build up the moistes and of general and Chassidus. Like we see literally, specifically in the latter years, there's a tremendous success in all the work of spreading Yiddishkeit and Torah and Chassidus in France, in a manner that is just increasing. Which you see over here, that in addition to this, that the Rebbe gives koyach to bring holiness even in a low place, but it's coming from a high place. In a manner where it's coming from a difference, coming from New York, let's say, the holiness is reaching France. It says no. And who are koyach is giving you koyach that France itself assume makam a makar shel Torah. It itself, and not just France, every country and every place should become a source of Torah. By setting the yeshivas, like a Lubavitch, as if it stands on its own, and it doesn't need to receive influence from an outside place, from the source. It itself becomes a source itself, like the source. And that's the ultimate chiddush. And this is Mashiachik. This is the ultimate accomplishment and the completion of the work of what needs to be done to complete and make the world holy. We're going to stop over here. Be'ez Hashem, next week, we're going to learn the last piece, really worth listening to. It's amazing. And hopefully, already before next week, in Hanukkah, we should merit already to see the third Beis HaMikdash and the menorah and the third Beis HaMikdash. Everyone take care and Afreilach and Chanukah, and only good.
Did I do good?
1 second.
Did I make a noise?
You're still on. Everybody can hear you now.
What?
Yeah. If you come on right now, everybody can hear you.